Dear participants, happy to meet you again. On behalf of the Department of English, G. Venkateswamy Naidu College, I am pleased to welcome you all to the national level webinar in collaboration with UGC on gender sensitization in higher education with reference to COVID-19. So I am pleased to welcome one and all for making your valuable time to join us today. We are really happy to organize this webinar, which is one of the most debated questions. Definitely, this webinar will answer most of your questions, we believe so. Here we have Dr. K. Hemalata, Professor of Mathematics, founder, director, Center for Empowerment of Women, Anna University, Chennai, and she is also the peer team member of NAC to educate and raise awareness about some of the gender impacts that COVID-19 is having on the society. I have to express my sincere welcome to Dr. P. Mahendran, Secretary of our college, for being a motivational persona and extend immense help in making each activity of this college most successful. I welcome you, sir. Also, I take this opportunity to welcome our principal, Dr. N.R. Shanti Mageshwari, who provides all possible help for the overall development of our college. Welcome you, ma'am. And it gives us immense pleasure in welcoming our director, Dr. G. Venkatachalapati, who is always with us whenever we approach him for initiating such development activities in our college. And a special welcome to Dr. V. Chandramadi, my respected research guide, staff members of our department, and particularly to the participants who have joined us here today. To talk about our chief guest, Dr. K. Hemalata is a retired professor of mathematics and founder director, Center for Empowerment of Women, Anna University, Chennai. She was a gold medalist in MSc Mathematics program in IIT Madras. After completing her PhD from IIT Madras, she was with Anna University Chennai since 1980 and retired as a professor of mathematics Anna University in 2011. Teaching mathematics to students has been her passion rather than a profession. She has a number of publications in the national and international journal and has guided several students for MPhil and PhD degrees in mathematics. She was also the founder director for Center for Empowerment of Women at Anna University Chennai. During her tenure as director, she had completed many projects for the women academicians, students, and self-help group women in collaboration with various agencies such as Science City, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, AICTE, Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, and Tamil Nadu Corporation for Development of Women Limited. She has coordinated the following three national and international conferences for women scientists and technologists. Number one is a role of women scientists and technologists for societal development in the month of March 2005. Empowerment of women through technology and science in August 2002, and academic challenges for women in the 21st century at Anna University Chennai between November and December 2000. Professor Hemalata established the daycare center at Anna University, realizing the need for it. Right now, it has about 25 children. She has served as the coordinator for Day Care Center, Anna University chairperson for Complaints Committee Against Sexual Harassment, Anna University Chennai, and convener of the Committee for Welfare of Women Staff and Students of Anna University. She has been associated with the UGC program and capacity building of women managers in higher education. Since its inception in 2003 till 2013 and has conducted about 30 workshops. As the sub-regional coordinator between 2005 and 11, she has conducted about 26 SAM. SAM, it is sensitational, awareness, and motivational workshops, and 3 training of trainers, and 3 management skill enhancement modules. Workshop under the above programs of UGC. At present, she is working with NGOs and other civil societies for developing proper national indicators on SDGs 2005 to 13 on Goal 4 Quality Education and Goal 5 Gender Equality. Currently, she is also pure team member of NAC. Really, ma'am, we are fortunate today to listen to your words of such a, and we are participants, we are really blessed to listen to the words of such a renowned academician. And I'm confident that this webinar will enlighten you, provide valuable guidance, and offer a rewarding and enriching experience to all of us. Thank you, one and all. And ma'am, the session is yours, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Saravana Selvakumar. A very good morning to all the participants. I'm extremely happy and delighted to be sharing some of my thoughts on this topic, which I feel is of very great importance in the present situation. And I'm very extremely thankful to the college, G. Venkatasamy Naidu College, Kovilpatti. I just now, Mr. Saravanakumar mentioned Dr. Mahendran, Dr. Kameshwari, Dr. Venkatachalapati, and the Principal Maheshwari. I welcome all of you and a special welcome to Dr. Chandramati. I am thankful to all of you for giving me this opportunity. It is a really very nice this webinar has been organized. If had it been last year, 2019 August, we would have never thought of a webinar being arranged. We would have always thought of a seminar. This is a new experience for all of us. There may be some professional hitches, technical hitches when we conduct this, but still I'm sure we can overcome this. And I'm extremely thankful to Mr. Saravana Selvakumar in the sense this app, Video Meet, is an Indian app. I requested him we can avoid Zoom, the other things, Chrome, Google Meet, other things. So it's a completely Indian app. So I'm really thankful that we could meet on this Indian app. So the necessity is the mother of inventions, and we are able to use an Indian app during this time. Otherwise, we would have never thought of this. So this is the new perspectives the COVID-19 has brought in. The only thing is I am not able to see any of the participants. So I may not know how many men are there, how many women are there, even though it says 77 participants right now. But and a, a big drawback of the webinar is since I'm not facing face to face with you, I won't be able to gauge your reactions. I would assume you are listening to me and then I have to proceed. And there is a joke in the internet, they call memes, where it says 2019 seminar, where the guest resource person is talking, and some people are sleeping in the audience, sitting on the chairs. Now it says webinar 2020, and you can see people joining in, and man joining in, and then he's lying on the cart and sleeping. Okay, so this is because your video and audio are muted. We cannot see. I'm just making it as a joke. So we hope all of you are listening to me, and I'm sure I will learn as much from you at the end of the session regarding from your reactions. Okay. So I have a few PowerPoints which we'll be sharing with you. There may be some time delay. Before that, I'll just talk about the topic. I've chosen this topic, gender sensitization in higher education with reference to COVID-19. So there are three keywords. One is gender sensitization, other one is higher education, the third one is COVID-19. So I'm not going to tell anything new. I'm sure most of you must have attended a lot of gender sensitization programs, particularly the one currently going on Bharatidasan University for 30 days, whatever it is. So you are quite familiar. I'm only going to start from the bottom level and try to bring focus on your thoughts on it. How do we look at the problem even though you're familiar? Sometimes we take it for granted. So I'll start with what is gender sensitization, what do we mean by the concepts associated with gender, like what is sex, what is gender, what is patriarchy, what is a feminist view, and then take you to gender sensitization. So we can start the session. We can go the PowerPoint. Dr. Sarvana Selvakumar, can
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have
Yes, ma'am. Doing well.
PPTs? So we are going to talk about gender equality, then equity. And what is gender equality? It's a state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunity. And what is equity? Equitable means it is fair and impartial. So when we talk of an education system, it should be gender. We should talk of gender equality as well as gender equity. So this is what in the higher education it becomes more and more important. And when we talk of COVID-19, what special references we are going to bring in with reference to COVID-19, because of the entire thing has changed. Right now, the scenario has changed. So let me start with the my PowerPoint presentation. Next slide, please. We start with what is sex, what is gender, and what is gender sensitization. All of you are familiar with this. Sex is given to us by birth. We cannot change it. Either we say either a male or a female. Now we got to include a third gender also. We have to, when we talk of gender sensitization, the third gender is also to be included. We cannot exclude them. The problems and issues connected with that also has to be discussed. And what is gender? Gender is what is viewed by the society, the roles and responsibilities which are assigned to a particular gender. What are the roles and responsibilities of a woman? What are the roles and responsibilities of a man, which is being thrust upon us by our society? So when we talk of gender, the gender roles we play, generally over the generation after generation, we have been thinking a woman means she has to be at home and take care of the family, whereas the man is expected to be the breadwinner. So this is what we are gender. But gender, when we talk of gender, you have to remember that uh, uh, it is specific to the particular region, the language, the culture, the country, etc. So and it also changes with time. It's a process. The roles assigned with gender changes with time also. So what when we talk of gender, we talk about what is expected as a woman, what is our responsibilities, what is expected from a man. We have to, when I talk of gender sensitization, please don't think it is only for related to women. We are going to talk about the problem. Gender has also constraints on women, on men, because it is the role they are expected to play as the head of the family, what is expected from them. So that also put a lot of pressure on the man in the changing world. When you expect the gender roles to be redefined, reshaped in according to what is going on currently, there are a lot of constraints on the man also. So that is what is gender sensitization. We are going to mean sensitize, become aware of our gender roles and what has happened in the past and what is going to happen in the future, what is changing currently, how it's going to affect both men and women and as well as the third gender. Can you have the next slide, please? Gender equality refers to, I've already mentioned, it's equal opportunities outcomes for men and women. It doesn't matter which one you belong to. Of course, I'm not mentioning specifically third gender, we have to include that also. This involves the removal of discrimination and structural inequality in access to resources, opportunities, and services. We cannot have unequal access to resources, opportunities, and services. Both, whether we are a man or a woman, they should have the same rights, equal rights. It does not mean a woman should be the same as a man. We can now see when we take up gender equality, we talk about equal opportunities being provided. But we don't expect a woman to play the same role as a man. They have separate roles to play. So that we have to understand. Promoting gender equality recognize that men and women have different roles that you have to understand and needs and take them into account in development during planning and programs We have to take that they have different roles. What are their needs? How to go about it? That we have to understand. So when okay, can we go to the next slide? So when we have some gender stereotypes, we talk about masculinity, feminist views. As I said, when we say feminism, these are women who work for the advocacy of women's for equal rights. And when you say masculinity, the nature associated with men. So when you say masculinity, the gender roles has defined all along that man is, and of course patriarchy also. Patriarchy means man is the head of the family and a woman is a subordinate. And so what it means is over generations in all society, mostly except where there are matrilinear societies in the northeast where a woman is the head of the family. Otherwise, it's generally world over we have only patriarchy. It's a male dominated society. So, and when masculinity, we say we want a man to be a breadwinner, and so we expect certain roles from women. And similarly, patriarchy and masculinity defines man, and feminists want some equal rights. So these have to be questioned. And what is that stereotypes? What are the stereotypes? A woman has to do the cooking. That is a stereotype thing. A woman has to be only mother has to take care of the children. That is again a stereotype. A man can also be involved in bringing up children in an equal way. Of course, taking care of the food and the physical needs, etc., giving birth, that a man cannot do. But after that, bringing up a child, a man can also play an equal role just as a mother in the changing world where the mother also goes out to work. And there is some subordination and discrimination also. Discrimination means discrimination because of your gender, what you are. If you are a woman, you cannot do this. Particularly when you have the job opportunities, people say there is a discrimination against women. See, if we hire a woman, they will take maternity leave. We have to give them, so we don't hire them. They may not be suitable for this job. That's the discrimination. Subordination means a man looks down on a women's role. If a woman is doing doing something, you feel that the man is always, even if he is at the workplace, the head of the department is a man. Whatever a woman contributes, he may look down on her and may not treat her as on par with the male colleague. So these are the various things associated with the gender. What is women empowerment? This was the term which was defined in Nairobi conference in 1995. It says it was women empowerment was defined in favor of women to share natural resources like water, etc. See, in the villages, people have to walk for miles to get water or something. So Nairobi, they say it's a redistribution of social power and control of resources in favor of women. That women should have a control over the resources like water. For example, if there is a one well in a village and it is in the border, who has to share that well is being decided by the men of the particular villages. So the women sometimes are not allowed to draw water from the well. That's why it says redistribution of social power as well as control of natural resources in favor of women. And after that, women empowerment has so many definitions, a um, multifaceted concept. But we can define women empowerment as the breaking of personal limitation and women realizing that they have control of their life. That means I should excel in whatever I do. That is the meaning of women empowerment. Okay, it's a breaking of personal limitation. Okay, it has been repeated. So can we have the next slide? So women empowerment and gender, are they related? Definitely they are related, because when we say of gender equality, when we have realized our gender equality and equity only, we can talk about women empowerment. So they go together. So gender sensitization is very, very important in women empowerment. And because of the gender, I mean the sex as a woman I have, a lot of crimes are being committed against women. And there are these are things which have come in the past in the newspapers and other things. Nandini is the person who was murdered at the station in the Nungambakam. Menupriya was, killed by acid throwing. Bhavana, they mean Varalakshmi, they are the film actors who had against whom some threats were held. Chinmayi also faced a singer who faced lot of threat from even including rape threat from the social media. And of course, Nirbhaya's case, everybody knows how she was um, raped and murdered in Chennai, girl, and then she could not survive. Because of that, only we had the Sexual Harassment Act 2013. And a woman teacher was hacked to death in the church during her marriage because she has refused the proposal of man. So it just brings us to the question: why is it that a woman has a right or choice to say no? That means if a man proposes to a woman, she just cannot say no. Man thinks he's superior, so the woman has to say yes. That's the reason why crime against is throwing. The crimes are increasing. So this is the choice. I mean, it means the gender role assigned to her says where a woman cannot have choice. So this is the gender sensitization we have to bring to the boys, that a woman has a right to say yes or no. It's the basic human right. Like any human being has a right to say yes or no. So we must understand. So because of these things, you can see the various things which are happening. Acid throwing, even now in the COVID time also it has happened. Honor killing. If a person marries a girl or a boy marries a person from another community, they kill in the name of sex, where women students, women staff, or women workers are being exploited, and the female infanticides where the babies are being killed. Rape cases are increasing, dowry deaths, and domestic violence, trafficking, and more cyber crimes in this present era. Stalking, women being followed, voyeurism, where they are being observed when they take bath or anything, and rape threats. So these are the crimes against women, and we have to take care how to overcome this. There are many legal aids which have come in favor of women. One is the Child Marriage Restriction Act, so which is a child should not be. It came in 1925, but even today in villages it's happening. The Immoral Traffic Prevention Acts 1956, still women and girl children are being trafficked for sex trade and other things. The Dowry Prohibition Act 19, you can see the years. So long it is staying, but still it is, even we are into 2020, still this dowry is being asked in most of the cases. The Equal Remuneration Act 1976. The Equal Remuneration Act, see, as far as we academicians are concerned, we don't have any problem. We are paid the equal salary whether we are a man or a woman. But what about the unorganized sectors? What a woman as a as a construction worker receives, or in the field, is much less than what a counterpart, a man, receives, in spite of the working hours, maybe even more than what men are working. And one thing we have to understand here is the Indian law, at least in universities, colleges, schools, we get equal pay. But you have to realize, even in US, in university educations with the same number of years, receive much less play compared to a man. Even today, we think the Westerns are far most advanced to us. It is not so. That gender discrimination exists lots there also. If a man's professor's annual salary is 1,20,000, say in US, for the same thing for a woman professor, it is only $80,000 per year. So you can see that $40,000 difference is still there even today. So we are very fortunate in India, at least at the higher levels, and I mean IT companies or our universities and other things, we are receiving equal pay, even though at the grassroots levels it is different. The National Commission for Women Act, it was established in 1990, the National Commission for Women. And then we have the Juvenile Justice Action 2000, the POCSO Act also, the Commission of Sati in 1987. It has come much earlier, but it was made this. Can I have the next slide? We have the Family Courts Act 1984, the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986, Succession Act, that a woman can also have a property to the right 2005, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence 2005. It's very, very important act in domestic violence where it is being committed. So there are lots of improvements in that. In the Sexual Harassment Act at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act in 2013, you must realize this act came into exist only in 2013 after Nirbhaya's death in December 2012. Before that, we have been having the Vishaka judgment, which has been kept in the parliament. It was only a bill. They never passed it as a act. Only after Nirbhaya's case, after much social justice. There were a lot of in Delhi. People took, particularly the youth, took to streets after Nirbhaya's murder. They were so outraged. There was a massive protection from the society, particularly in Delhi, which led to this act in 2013. On their own, the government was never interested in bringing this act because of the social uprising against the harassment. Only it came into existence. And then we have the Muslim Women Protection of Rights Act, which came in 2019. So what is this? You can go to the next slide, Ekata. So this has banned triple talaq. See, in July 30th, it completed 1 year. So see, there were some laws where we have only, it's based on the religion. Uniform civil code we are not able to bring because of the different religions, but still it helped the women, the triple takola. It's a very monumental judgment, so it has come into X. And then there are 8 goals of Millennium Summit. They are called Millennium Summit of UN. It's called MIDS, Millennium Development Goals. Okay, it came into existence 2000. It was for 15 years, 2000 to 2015. You can see in the slide, it says eradicate extreme poverty, so many things for 15 years. And you can see the third one is to promote gender equality and empower women. This was 8 goals. In 2015 has passed. We are now into 2020. Now, after this, can I go to the next slide? After MDGs, that is Millennium Development Goals, we have what are known as SDGs. They are Sustainable Development Goals, which was being after 2015. It's another 15 years, 2016 to 2013. This is called as Post-Beijing Platform for Action. Why it's called Post-Beijing Platform for Action is we have had 4 women conferences, world conferences on women. The first one being in 1975 at Mexico, and the second one was third one was at Nairobi. The second one was at Copenhagen, 1980. 1985 we had in Nairobi. The third world conference on women, and the fourth one was in 1995 at Beijing. That was the last conference on women we had. We never had after that conference or world conference on women. That's why it's called post-Beijing platform, or whatever was decided. It was the largest gathering of women at Beijing in 1995 world over. Lakhs of women attended the conference and a lot of things happened, discussions. That because of that one, it's called post-Beijing platform. Now we are in SDGs. If you look into any educational document also, they will be talking of sustainable development goals. We have to be more and more aware of this. Totally, there are 17 goals. I'm not going to give into the details of it, but again, Goal 5 is gender equality. You see, we saw the gender equality and women empowerment in 2000, 2015. Again, 2016, 30 also gender equality as goal 5 is come. That means we are not able to achieve. It's not possible to achieve gender equality just 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It's a process. Over generation, we have come to this. We have to overcome it. It's only slowly, step by step. But we are in the process, and ultimately, sometime we will be getting into it. But in 2016 to 30, now we are 2020. Another 10 years to go. What maximum we can do for gender equality, we have to see. Can I have the next slide, please? The reality is, we have seen the various acts which are in favor of women, which pro women it has come, and the constitution, legislation, policy, and program, lot of changes have come, and worldwide, from UN onwards, they are promoting gender equality, but still the situation reality is much. You can go to the next one. Please go to the next one. There are a lot of gap still exists between these goals. So what we have to see is, I don't know what was the previous slide. What we have to do is, we want to have, when a woman and man barriers for one, these you can see what are the workplace gender related barriers. They involve sexual harassment, unfair hiring practices. You may employ a woman for a lower salary, particularly if it's a private sector, I mean companies, private sectors, etc. Career progress and unequal pay, um, and so such things do exist, and we may not get a compared to a man, but still receive a less pay. You can see this particularly. I feel it. I mean, we call it casualization of labor. If you see people who are employed on contract basis, temporary basis, okay, the guest lecturers, they are being hired for a very low salary compared to what we receive as salary as a regular professor or whatever it is. So when such with equal qualification, when people, because they don't find an employment, they agree for to be a guest lecturer. They're never made for permanent. For years they pay very unequal salary for the same class. A guest lecturer for a month may be paid only 10,000, 15,000. The same class a regular professor gets, he gets an 1 lakh. So you can see the vast distance, I mean difference or disparity in pay, which makes it for a guest lecturer not having a job satisfaction at all. And if you look at this temporary lectures, I have gone for conducting workshops across India. The most of the guest lecturers are ladies. They accept to come and teach at a at a university or a college for a lower pay, because it so happens they are married there in that particular place. They are looking out to. They feel that talent should not go astray. So even if it's a low pay, they accept it. So for women, this casualization of labor is very unfair. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Okay,
So what
thank you.
what we do is, we have to have a level playing ground for men and women. When you come into career, we have a work-life balance. Women have to take care of the family. We never tell women should leave the family responsibilities and take care of only the professional roles. They should give equal importance for domestic as well as your professional. So whether it is personal or professional, you have at each time stage of life it will be different. When you are when a woman is not married, she can spend more uh, time at the college. In fact, many people give more work to a lady who's not married, whereas the women who's married says, I have to take care of my family, I have a small child, they run away. So but you, when the small child is there also, they cannot spend that much of time, but they need some some support facility so that can take care of it. But so the work life balance changes at different stages of life. It may be where, you may be paying more attention to the family when you're just married or you have a family, start a family. But towards the middle age, when the children are grown up, and they've gone into colleges, you have more time, you spend more time with for research and other activities. So when you say work life balance, it cannot be a perfect balance like 50%, 50%. It depends on the situation. But what we need at workplace, you may need social support in the family, like you take care of your husband's support, your family, your parents or in-law support on the this side. And similarly at workplace also, you need some women need some support. Okay, these are called gender positive initiatives. They are in favor of women, but they are not against men. We have to understand the gender positive initiative. People think whenever a law or some state comes, they say it only for the women. It is for giving a level playing ground to the term. So we have to have clean restroom. These are the some of the needs of the women students and women faculty. Proper transport facilities, good drinking water, common room facilities, daycare centers. Daycare centers are becoming more and more important because more and more parents are working and they need to leave the children. If it's there is a daycare center at the workplace itself, it's of more help because they can leave the children when they are coming for work and they pick them up and they are going back. So and you understand, when they say daycare center, gender positive initiatives, we think it is only for women. But you must remember, whatever we do for a woman takes care of, it also benefits a man. When I started the daycare center in 2003 with the help of UGC. We started a daycare center. We just started with one child, then three children, etc. So at that time, people used to make fun. Okay, the women staff will go to the daycare center and spend their time there. I have to start the daycare center to convince the VC. I had to take an undertaking from the women staff that they will not visit the daycare center during working hours. Okay, this is how we brought the daycare center. But now you can see more number of men are leaving their children at the daycare center at Anna University because their wives are working and they find it convenient to drop the child there at daycare center. So what benefits some women benefits some man, the entire society. So don't think the gender positive initiatives are only in favor of women. It is for the benefit of the man also. And we need security for the women staff here. Okay. And complaints committee against sexual harassment, that is again becomes a very, very important criteria. Can I go to the next slide, please? So this is about gender sensitization. And we are coming into higher education now. Okay, so higher education plays a very important role in developing good human capital. So in that, particularly a gender sensitized person is a very good, adds value to the human capital. When they say gender sensitized person, does it mean only all women are gender sensitized, only men are not gender sensitized? It is not so. Women also need to be gender sensitized. They may be leaders, they may be the principals. A woman may be the head of the department, they may be a principal or a vice chancellor or some in the leading role, but still she may fail to rise to the needs of the women, whereas a man can do it. So gender this is very, very important. When we supply human capital to the society, to the nation, we should supply in gender sensitization. So, gender sensitization in higher education becomes very, very important. And we talk about gender champions. This is a class by UGC, gender champions in the college or the university, where we say gender champions. It can be a woman, a girl. For the students, it can be a women student or it can be a boy. So gender champions, what they do is, they see, when we go see gender sensitization just by a basic course, it cannot be brought a gender sensitization. Most of the colleges conduct women gender sensitization program. It's mostly conducted for women, but it should be conducted for both sexes. And men should also be aware of the issues associated with the gender role a woman is playing. They should be more aware of the laws which are being indicated, because your domestic violence act or the sexual harassment, the main you there is a rare case, say, of 1% of a woman misusing it, which may go against a woman. So men should also be aware of what are the women's rights, what are the laws favorable for women. At the same time, men play a very, very important role in gender sensitization. The boys should become champions for the cause of the women students. We as teachers, as professors, when we tell them these are the things to be followed, they may not listen that much. But when the own boy from the representative or the own friend comes and tells these are the things we should do, we should not do, it goes a long way in this. Years back, I conducted a workshop in maybe about 5 years back at Anna University, Trichy, and then a man principal came and talked about the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act 2013, the prevention, prohibition, etc., that carried more weight compared to a woman coming and talking about a gender harassment cells. So I believe in all gender sensitization program. We have to take men along with us. We have to involve the boys also along with us. And we also should understand, when we talk of masculinity of a boy, etc., the role a man or a boy is expected to play is also a lot of constraints, plays a lot of constraints when we change the roles. If, for example, if we say, yeah, women can also, a man can also help a women in the at the home, maybe it, cooking, or taking washing the clothes, people running a washing machine, or taking care of the studies of the children. Most of the time, men think to do these are women jobs, we should not do it. So why is that? Because of it's a patriarchy attitude which has come over the generation. They're not able to leave that and come out of that circle or the limitation. They think it's only a women's role. Even um, well, see, even the girls in higher education are not aware of the general roles. They are not gender sensitized. A few years back, I watched a program in Niya Nana conducted by Gopinath at Vijay. So there were ladies on one, lady students on one side from different colleges, arts, science, medical, engineering, and the other side boys were there. So they were asking what they expect from the uh, other sex, the opposite sex. So when one girl said, "I like boys riding motorbikes because that is more masculine." Okay, and the same person said, "I don't like a boy who cooks because that is the job of a woman." Okay, whereas the boys were more, they said, "We are willing to share the chores with women participants." So these are the things that they associate with the boy. Boy means he has to ride a good car or a motorbike. That is masculine. Being empathetic to a women problem is more masculine than all this outward what the world is looking for. Notice of the both genders, so it will go a long way in solving our problems. So when I was in Anna University, I used to conduct gender sensitization program in the first year itself, because that is the age we can catch them young. So they will be more for the rest of the 4 years. They will go with this gender sensitized thing. So when I was asking them whether they want a working woman as a wife in the future, almost everybody, 100% said they want only a working woman. So I asked them the question: if suppose a woman, you get married, your wife is coming late, both of you arrived late, and you are not had any dinner or anything. Conducted a gender sensitization program where I asked the boys where they wanted only working women, whether they are ready to share responsibilities at home. When suppose both of them come tired, they're working in IT companies, say both of them are employed coming late at night and the dinner has to be prepared. They didn't have a canteen or anything, whether the boy will help. Most of the boys were just keeping quiet. Then I asked one boy, what will you do this happens? The answer he gave was, I will bring my mother and make her stay with me. See, even there he says he'll bring his mother and share the workload, and not he was not willing to share it. Then I asked them, see, when the end of the final year, Anna University students, quite a few of them, not at least 10% go abroad for doing higher study. So I said, when you go abroad, when you go to US or UK or Germany or whatever it is, you go there and then you share the apartment with some 3 friends or something. You share the household chores, you cook, you do the washing, because they don't know domestic help is available. You do everything. But the moment you get married, you want your wife to be there, you are forced because of economic conditions. One is, first of all, the domestic helper is not available. Second one is too expensive to have somebody. So you are willing to share when you're economic conditions. But the moment you get married, you want only the wife should do anything. That should not be the case. It doesn't matter whether, if you do not know cooking, it's all right, but take part in something else. Maybe cleaning the vessels, or putting the clothes for wash in the washing machine, or helping the children with this thing. But some um, domestic chores have to be shared equal by both men and women. That is the gender perspective we want to bring in here. So the gender sensitization, you can see the gender sensitive indicators. These are the indicators which are being asked in the NAC curricular aspect. What are the number of, because they are very particular. The women inclusive programs you should have, and whatever marks your education, women inclusive, all these things. Curricular aspect, number of women related courses, topics introduced in teaching, learning, evaluation, participants in women professional development programs, research. Can I have the previous slide? Okay,
Okay.
research, infrastructure, and availability of hostel for women, student support and availability of sexual harassment cells, and organization, number of women in various committees. I will not go with this. The number of women in various committees, it should not be just number alone. They should be gender sensitized women in the various committees. And healthy practices, like number of gender sensitization program conducted. But how many were useful in spite of all this? Number of gender sensitized. That's what we have to see when they leave the college, whether they have a empathy towards the women or not. That is what is being the question now. So these are being the questions which are being asked NAC. For when the NAC comes, you may show some toilet, some this thing, etc. But how effective they are, even the complaints committee, it is not just for the namesake you should have a complaints committee. How active it was, it should be also be remembered. Okay, so these are the some of the gender sensitive indicators. And maybe I would like to share one more thing with the availability of sex. You see, after Nirbhaya's case, the Sexual Harassment Act came in 2013. Before that, we had from much earlier, from 1995 onwards, we had the Vishaka judgment. Okay, so which was involved with the rape of women in the north, and then the judgments pronounced by that. So we were having that only, following that at the colleges. Not all colleges were having that, but UGC was insisting on having the sexual harassment cells, but not many colleges were having it. I just want to say, I do not know our present Honorable Minister um, um, for Finance, who was also a minister earlier for our defense minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman. She was also a member of the National Commission for Women during 2002-2004. I was at Atta University at that time as the Director Center for Empowerment of Women. She wrote a letter saying, since Anna University is an affiliating university, that we had only Vishaka judgment. Okay, based on that, you should have sexual harassment committee cells. In or it may make it mandatory in all the colleges which are affiliated to Anna University. At that time, 2002, many people were not even aware of who Nirmala Sitharaman was. Okay, but only people at this level other than. So when I received it, I talked to the vice chancellor. Then we made it as a condition for affiliation to the college that they should have the proper establishment of Sexual Harassment Act, and whatever told in the Vishaka judgment only came in the Nirbhaya's case also 2013, that it should be headed by a woman, more than 50% should be women, etc. The particular constitution of the committee. So we made it as a mandatory that for affiliation they should have a complaint committee. So we could achieve that in 2003, from 3 onwards. We didn't wait till 2013. So still that criteria is being followed. But you can have a sexual harassment cell for namesake. But how many cases you're receiving, how many you're dealing with, that is more important. Many times people do not talk it out because it may bring a bad name to the university or the college or the institute, wherever. Many cases it can be solved internally. Only it becomes very big, only the NGO or something have to be called in. So you can make it, the sexual harassment can make it very active. They can also, they have separate, you have a sexual harassment committee cell, you have a separate women's cell. When you conduct a gender sensitization program, it should be in the beginning of the first year, where both boys and girls come together. So we have to make them come together, then we can talk, so that they carry it forward. And the sexual harassment committee and the women's cell jointly can organize this program. So in the first year itself, students come to aware of the existence of a sexual harassment complaints committee cell. So when see in Anna University, what we did, when you talk a gender sensitive program, just conduct it, make it as a paper or something, it doesn't help. So we called in the first year itself. At present, what I'm talking is what is going on at Anna University at present. That is a partial prevention of sexual harassment cell, and there is a women empowerment. Together, they organize program in the first year, in the orientation program itself as a part of it, a one-day program for the students, where the boys and girls come together, and we invite popular speakers like, say, Bharati Bhaskar, Parveen Sultana, Mr. Sujit. Such people come and talk. They talk about the gender sensitivity in a very, very nice way, and students are attracted to the way they speak. So it goes into the mind in the beginning itself. So that way we are able to, then they, for rest of the 4 years, we are able to have a very gender sensitized persons. So can I have to the next sem? So I have spent enough time on gender sensitivity in higher education, where we should have the gender sensitization include boys and have it in the first year. Now, what are the challenges faced by us during the COVID-19 society? It is a general challenge for everybody. The lockdown, we have to be confined to our home. The education institutions were closed. The students, the children were staying at home with no school or college, work from home for IT industry mainly, and unorganized sectors, the domestic health, the security, they say, and the other people, construction workers, they all completely lost the income. The migrant workers' problems, I need not mention. There were so many problems for their particular, their families. They could not pay. They did not receive salaries. They could not pay the house rent. They had to go back to their native place, walk, because there was no transportation. And we all of us have the fear of infection, anxiety, and depression also during this field. And we have a lot of stress. And we have, because of the COVID-19, we have the changing scenario in higher education as well as school education. You have online classes. Now it's all going on for schools. The colleges are just starting. Examination system also, they are just thinking how to go about it, and the admission process. So this brings us to a lot of challenges, lot of stress, particularly the admission. Nobody knows. The plus two results came, because there are no online counseling. Nobody can go out, so everything you have to do it online. Whether you will get a job, whether you will get an admission in some college, nobody is very sure. and how the classes are going to be for the next year, the semester, whether it will take 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, nobody knows. So with this uncertainties brings a lot of anxiety and depression for the students as well as the parents, particularly for the ladies. Can we go to the next slide? So women are constrained to stay at home. If they are working from home, if at least we in the college people, except we are taking online classes, we are at home. Otherwise, the IT people are working from home, so they have to take care of the family. They have to give them food because food from outside is not possible. They have to take care of the children, school education, online classes, and they have to come and attend webinars like this, right? So attending a webinar is also putting a constraint for the. It may put a constraint both men and women because you have to spend time, whereas at simultaneous in an online class for your school child may be going on. So these are the challenges we are faced by women during this. And for migrant workers, this poverty and unhygienic conditions where they don't have water, they work for hours, and women have their own physical problems with that. And you think of the pregnant ladies uh, who are particularly migrant, where they walk, they give birth on the way itself. And even the pregnant ladies now, they are so much afraid to go to a hospital because of the COVID-19, whether they will catch infection, whether the child will catch infection. For the entire family, it's a very big threat. And now lot of, so if you read in the paper after the March 23 lockdown, a lot of suicides, my mother's along with children. See the my at the grassroots level, many are unemployed. They are not able to pay the rent, they are not able to take care of the family. And whereas the mothers have to feed the children. And a lot of domestic violence, particularly domestic violence, because the men are now, it's all the tasmac shops are open, so they, when they don't get, they try to beat their wives only. So at the lower level, lot of domestic violence going on, so the crimes against women are increasing. The mothers are not able to cope up. Some of them take the wrong decision of committing suicide along with children. They think there will be nobody to take care of the children. So first they throw the children, poison them, or throw them into well, and then they try to commit. Sometimes the mother survives. So these are the problems we are facing in a pandemic. How to cope up with this? How to sensitize them? That with what we have to see. And this COVID situation is very, very difficult for physically and mentally challenged children. We have one Vidya Saga, which is working in the Kotrupuram in Chennai, which is for mentally challenged children. They are telling the online classes is very difficult. See, they need physical activities and other things. In the COVID situation, they are not able to take care of them. And the blind people, they need touch. Now you say social distancing, don't touch, they face a lot of problem. So there's a lot of problem for these people also. And the online classes for children bring in lot of stress for the uh, both parents. If the father is working in a room, the mother only has to see whether the child is listening or not. So that also increases the stress for the lady. So it's an increased stress for women, domestic core, online course, webinars, anxiety in admission for kids. These are the special problems, challenges faced by women during this pandemic. Okay, next slide, please. So in higher education, okay. So how do we cope up with this pandemic? Sharing household duties, family members, including children. See, we come from a setup where the mother does everything. They don't want to even involve the children. Can have the slide has disappeared? You can bring it back. So we don't even want to bring the children, thinking the children. See, earlier only the girls' children were asked to work. Now we educated people, we give equal importance for boys and girls. We don't give them any household chores at all, because we pamper them so much. Finally, they are not able to adapt life. Now is the time. The pandemic has taught us a lot of things. We have to learn to share the chores. So even if a mother does the cooking, maybe the washing or laying down the table or catching water, both boys and girls can join. See, I see here children who are in plus one, plus two. The mothers now, just to have an income, they're cooking and sending food. These boys don't deliver them. So this is even though they are plus one, the classes have not yet started, so they are doing all this work also. So these are changing times. I So what do we do in higher education? I'm just going to talk next about higher education. How do we do the gender sensitization right now in this pandemic period, where we can come only on video meets or audio meets, online classes, where we cannot have a gender sensitization program in person? Having boys and girls together and making them interact, have debates, that is more possible in person if the college is functioning physically. But now in the present situation, it is not possible. So we have to deal with that. I think I've taken a lot of time, maybe because of the slow connection or whatever it is. So I'd like to wind up soon. So now the National Education Policy, new policy has been announced on 29th. So now we have a completely different pedagogy where we have 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 years, starting from 3 to 6 1, then say 7 to 10 1, etc. We have the various things and the 3 point formula, 3 language formula. Whether it is going to be a benefit or not, what the politicians say, please do not go by it. As education is what we can do, we have to think. So now is the time where now the new education policy says it should be a gender inclusive, gender equitable program. So we can brought in lot of changes in the curriculum itself, where we can talk about the contribution of the women starting from the lower LKG level onwards. We can bring in. See, we have never talked about our earlier, say Velumani, Nelu Nachiyar or Mangama, Rani Mangama, such people. We should bring in the leaders and our scientist women leaders who are taken part in Chandrayaan and other things, and or all who are taking the Dr. Manjula, who's heading the DRDO in Hyderabad. All this can be brought in. The women scientists can be brought in part of the curriculum. So the gender sensitization, you don't have to do it separately. You can make it part of. Now it brings in a lot of education opportunities for us, the college teachers. You can bring in, write in lot of books now. You can organize lot of workshop because the teacher training is going to be very, very important in this 2020. The new education policy, then it throws a lot of openings. So how we went to, so we can deal with this. To cope up with this pandemic situation, we have to have a very positive attitude. We must have a we must learn to smile, humor, whatever help we can do. Learn a new language. If you are at home, we can learn a new language or pursue your hobby. Go for rest, go for meditation, go for yoga. It will all help. The stress will be released. See, the stress symptoms includes headache, vomiting, body pain, and cold, cough because your immunity is low because of the stress. So it may resemble your COVID symptoms. So it may be only a stress symptom. So we have to learn to cope up with this. At the same time, we have to learn to better use of this. So how do you go about gender sensitization? See, ask them, make the students watch good movies where gender sensitization has taken part, like Amitabh Bachchan's Pink, or it's called Nekonda Parvai, where Ajit participated. Or you can even Beagle, where a woman's passion as a footballer is being not addressed. So you can have all these things in place. So I would like to conclude. See, NAC is organizing a lot of programs online. They brought in a book, Pursuit of Quality in Higher Education in Indian Perspective, in which I have also contributed one of the article. But the director of NAC, Professor S.G. Sharma, has shared an article. It says Unheard Melodies, Women Who Ignited the Lamp of Modern Education in India. He talks about 9 people, including Muthulakshmi Reddy. So these are the curriculum changes we can bring in the new education policies. So that brings us, that can keep the academicians busy, both men and women, who can include a gender inclusive curriculum in the modern this thing. So gender sensitization becomes part of our life, starting from home, and so LKG onwards to this is, we don't have to concentrate only in higher education. So higher education, the pattern is completely changing. So it is providing us all new opportunities to improve our skills, start our program, etc. So this is what I would like to conclude. So thank you very much for joining in. I am not sure whether you are able to hear me or not. Thank you very much.
And
You
thank you so
can
much. Thank you so much for
thank.
enlightening everyone.
So I really thank the college and in particular, I thank Jeevankaswamy Naidu College, and in particular Mr. Selva Saravana Kumar and Chandramati, who introduced me to this program. Thank you very much for the opportunity. If you have any questions, you can ask.
And we have a question. We have a question from a participant, and the question is, it is
Mm,
from Mr. Balaji. Truth be told, the country is witnessing an
mm,
anti-feminism wave. The country is witnessing an
mm,
anti-feminism wave. How
mm,
could we survive such a holistic
mm.
views to gender sensitivity viewed as political correctness?
See, I do agree, because men think that whatever are coming in favor of women are against men. See, pro women policies are not against women. They are pro women. They are for women, but they are not against men. So that they have to include. And why this anti-feminism? Do you know there is an International Men's Day? Just like we have an International Women's Day. Actually, I wanted to conclude my talk with this year's uh, International Women's Day seminar. That is, we both are equal, each one for equal. This is the symbol we use for equal. That is, both men and women work together for gender equality. So we have an International Women's Day for, International Men's Day also, which is falls on November 19th. Okay, they think only the men. See, these are starting trouble when people fail to understand what is in favor of women. And sometimes when the women tend to misuse the laws, say a sexual harassment false complaint, or a domestic violence false complaint, then it goes against entire women. It may be a one person who are very, there are a lot of loopholes in this laws. So some people make use of it, so that's why it's going against women. But we can overcome this year, and you can see the new education policies very gender inclusive. It includes everybody. My PowerPoint I could not show. It is, I have mentioned it all there. So we can overcome this anti-feminist. We have, see, anti-feminist in the sense, whatever is benefiting a woman is ultimately benefiting the society. So like what Swami Vivekananda has said, a bird cannot fly with one wing. It has to use two wings. So same in life. For our country's progress, both men and women are needed. So nobody should be treated slightly above the other. It is equal partnership. Okay. So it need, so the men have to understand, the women have to understand. When they don't understand this, then the anti-feminism and everything comes. That's why he said, just because I am a woman, I need not be called as a gender sensitized person. It's a different one. It is for both men and women. And in fact, I would like to, I have given my recommendations in the NAC also in my article. We no longer we should have women study center. It should be gender study center, because both genders come together. So that is my answer to your question. I'm sure over the years it will come into existence.
And ma'am, there is
Any other
another
question?
question from
Yes.
it is, ma'am, it is predicted that several girl students from
From
resource poor
Sorry,
families
I'm not.
won't be able to go back to schools due to economic stress. Can this issue be addressed in future?
No, can you please repeat the question? Please
And the question
repeat the
is,
question.
ma'am, it is predicted that several girl students from resource poor families won't be able to go back to
Hmm.
school due to economic stress on family. This is going to impact
Hmm.
their education and well-being tremendously. How this, how can this issue be addressed in future?
I really didn't follow the question in the sense why are they not allowed to go back to the education because of the present economic conditions where the parent is unemployed and the children are also go for child labor. What exactly is that? I do not understand that question. But new education policy, people think when they come 5 plus 3 plus 3, people may be just discontinuing the studies in between, but it may not happen. That is my personal feeling, because from age 3 onwards the government is going to take care of them, but it is a lot of steps are needed. It cannot happen overnight. Lot of proper teacher training has to be done. The rural women can be children can be included. See, you can have some flexible timings where they can help the parents during some times, and they can attend the classes also. They definitely, it will work. We need not fear that the rural people will discontinue. A lot of people in the city also may discontinue because they have exit exams. Okay, 3 exit exams are they, when the first 5 years is over, the next 3 years is over, next 3 year is over, etc. They can continue only if they pass the exam. But I don't think it is going to be a very severe process. They just want to do, once you completed up to 7 years, you completed second standard, whether you have able to identify the alphabets, whether you're able to write. Otherwise, now they go up to seventh standard, still they are able to count only up to ninth. So I don't think this is going to impact the dropping can happen anyway due to economic conditions, even in the present
Ma'am,
time.
and
The
this is
dropping
another,
can happen. Sorry.
yes, until we put in our effort, we cannot change anything.
Yes, yes. We see, that's why I said, as a teacher, as a college teacher, I have a lot of social responsibilities. We must put in our effort to go to the rural people, say maybe during a weekend or something, train the students or train the speak to the rural students, motivate them. It can happen, but it's part of the syllabus. Now, a lot of things are being, see, the DST, Department of Science and Technology, is doing a lot of things to bring in more students to women students to science, because rural students, the girl students particularly, the teachers themselves said don't go for science. So these things, and now there is an integration of arts and science. Now in the new curriculum, it's no longer science and arts. The science students can opt for a art subject, they can opt for music, they can opt for sports. They are no longer extracurricular activities, they are part of the syllabus where you get this thing. So this is a new advantage which you have, where sports, music, everything is being brought into integration. So the new education policy has lot, but implementation, how it's going to work, the most important thing is the teacher's quality. How we are going to train. We in the higher education have a lot of responsibility. We can bring in lot of write new books. You can write lot of things to training programs. For this, you can bring in, make it a use of this time to bring in that, because the government also needs support from the teachers.
Yes, ma'am,
And
and
that's
ma'am,
going
I
to be
do.
no longer UGC or AICT. It's only one higher council, a higher education council for India. So that is the one thing. And they also have a research fund foundation, which is going to be separate body for research. No longer AICT or UGC will be associated with this. For all your research problems and other things, you have to apply only to the research funding foundation. So there are a lot of changes. We have to understand them in the proper perspective. It may not work. See, this all may take years, but the preparation has to start now itself. And the three language formula, in my opinion, it's good because a rural student can go up, see Tamil Nadu, they can go on the Tamil medium up to fifth. Simultaneously, they can learn English because otherwise they don't learn English. And you can learn one more language also, which I feel Tamil Nadu has neglected for a long time. If you can opt for Hindi or your mother tongue, mother is Tamilian, father is Telugu, you can opt for Telugu. But Hindi, I feel as not knowing Hindi is a big challenge for us because if you go to Delhi or anywhere, they speak only in Hindi. Karnataka, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh, all of them learn Hindi. Tamil Nadu is the only state which is not learning Hindi. So not knowing Hindi is a big barrier for us. So in that sense, it will make a lot of difference. In of with all the higher, we see higher, in the cities, well-to-do families send them for tuition, Hindi or some tuitions and other things where they can come. All the political parties also, they don't support, but all the leaders' sons, daughters, they all learn Hindi. So that way, the three language formula will be benefit them, and the children catch up very early. They can learn it very fast.
Ma'am, I have a question,
And
ma'am.
yes, please.
Ma'am, women are underpaid. Are they considered to be the second sex or the other? Why they are underpaid, ma'am?
Women are underpaid most. That's what I said. No, we don't have the pay disparity in higher education or highly paid jobs. The pay disparity comes mostly at the grassroots level, where they have always been treated as less equal compared to a man. But in higher education, only when they hire for contract basis temporary teachers, the women are underpaid, because the management, this mostly happens in the private colleges or when they have a self-supporting program. The other colleges also, aided colleges also hire people. Why women join for a lower pay? Yes, see, the management wants to say, so whoever is willing to accept for a lower pay, they are willing to pay them, take them. Why the women are willing to pay? It may be the husband's job is in that particular. She may have been in Chennai. Now she must have, may say, has shifted to Thuthukudi or Kovilpatti. The husband is shifted. So in Kovilpatti, she's looking for a job because her qualification is good. She wants to contribute, and she doesn't want to just sit at home as a housewife. So when they say one day this is available for you, they are willing to take it. That is how this is happening, the casualization of labor. I'm sure it will be addressed in the new education policy, where this contract, this thing, everything will be abolished. So I don't think that will be a problem in the future, because they will have some policies where everybody is treated equally.
And ma'am, this is the last question and we can wind up.
Yes.
When we think and talk about gender equality, when we
Mm,
think and talk about gender equality,
mm,
we can take examples of tribal communities,
mm,
particularly of Northeast India.
mm,
Parsis are the only matrilineal society
mm,
where
mm,
gender equality is in
mm,
priority since
mm,
ancient time.
mm.
Can we adopt such traditional examples and make compulsory part of gender and women's studies?
No, see, that's I mentioned in the beginning also. In the northeast, the Kasi families, they are matrilineal. In Kerala also, some of the things are matrilineal. So the property goes to the daughters, not to the son. So what is happening in the northeast is, many from the other communities are also willing to marry into Kasi family, because the property goes to the daughter. You understand? So this is a matrilineal. So that we need not adopt. Now the Succession Act, no, Property as Succession Act is equally for now. It has come into existence. So it says both daughters and sons will get equal share in the property. So we don't have to go to that example where but that's what I said. Our gender is over, roles are defined over the period of time, and it depends on location, it depends on your culture. So it may be different in different, but we are not able to have a uniform succession laws. So Northeast, these laws they cannot apply. But the succession law here in India, it applies to all the other places. So I think that takes care of it. We don't have to go for a matrilinear society.
Thank you so much, ma'am. On behalf of the Department of English, G. Venkateswamy Naidu College, I'm pleased to propose the words of gratitude to all the members who contribute their utmost help for the successful conduct of the one-day national level webinar on women sensitization in higher education with reference to COVID-19. I'm happy to extend my gratitude to the expert speaker, Dr. K. Hemalata, Professor of Mathematics, Founder Director, Center for Empowerment of Women, Anna University, Chennai, and the pure team member of NAC. Madam, your presentation was lively, engaging, and highly informative, and I believe that the outcome of today's program would be fruitful to everyone, particularly to the young researchers. Your presentation was beyond excellence, and we cannot thank you enough for your great job you did. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm indebted to thank our secretary, the principal, and the director for their continuous support and for being a motivating figure for all our faculty members and students. I wish to record my gratitude to all the staff members who helped us in making this event a successful one. I would like to express my appreciation to all the participants, particularly participants who have joined us here today. And this is a Indian app. As ma'am said, we are using it for the first time, and you have faced so many problems during this webinar. And I have to thank you for your patience. And only because of you, the program was a success. Giving it your time really made this webinar a grand success. Thank you, one and all. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, participants.